the whole conversation.
I just can't believe we're doing this again, but we're gonna give it another fucking try. Whatever, we're live. Well, we're not live,
Yay.
but oh my gosh,
We're live for us.
we're live for
I'm
us. We
I'm
are.
active. Yeah,
You are active.
an audience. We both have an audience of one right now. We're live in front of an audience of one.
We're performing for each other. I can't believe we're going to start this podcast again. Thank you, everybody who's joining us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your unbelievably beautiful podcasts. Preach, how are you?
I'm wonderful. It's Sunday. I'm awake. Blood pressure and heart rate are great.
We have been talking about this for how long to get this going again?
Ask Victoria. I think she's been asking for it longer than we've been talking about it.
Christ,
She's the one keeping us on track.
If we didn't start this, some of the pioneers might have found me and Buffalo Billed me at this point. So, no, it's good to be back, man. We've wanted to do this podcast forever. We had a successful podcast before. Super excited to be here. This isn't going to be quite like what we do live at, on Twitch. This is going to be more thought-provoking. This is going to be uncensored. So whatever Preach is thinking, whatever I'm thinking, we're going to let it fly. And we hope you guys let it fly too down in the comments, wherever you see this, hear this. And this is just going to kind of be an open door into who we really are and what we really think. And some of the big topics of the day, the week, the month, some timeless topics too. We're going to have guests on the show. Preach and I are working on guests for the show. And it's going to be awesome. And we think we've settled, honestly, on a title for the podcast. But if you guys have a good one, make sure you leave it in the comments, too, because we might pick yours. So,
and like and subscribe and hit that little notification button.
Yeah, well, they have. I mean, listen, that's what this
is. It's true. You do have to do it. Yeah, it's true, too. Yeah.
That's we're doing this. I'm doing this because I love them. I'm doing this because I enjoy being with the pioneers all the time. I'm doing this because you're one of my best friends on the planet Earth. And this is just us being able to just be ourselves. Mm-hmm. And let it rip, dude. Let it rip.
Yeah, it's another avenue of how you can express yourself. And it's it's good to have different sides to the entity that is, Ply on camera is definitely a particular vibe, and being able to, I think it's healthy for people to be able to show, in academia, it's actually called faces, because it's the concept is you show one face to the you have your like father face, and you have your your Ply Rock Nation face, and then you have your John, and so it's the face you show to the public, and it's good, and they're all a part of you. So it's like being able to express different elements is actually like mentally healthy for everyone. And so I think this is a really good opportunity to have a different interactivity and connectivity with your community. It'll hopefully deepen the bonds of connectivity that keep them together, and make your community so vibrant like it is already. I mean, that's really what it's about, right? Like, you have such a interactive community that really feel like they're a part of the show, and they are part of a group, and they're friends, and it generally has like a there's real relationships built there, and this should only enhance that experience for the overall group, and for anybody new who hopefully eventually new people will find out about it and also want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and well, you touched on something there. Hold on a second. You said that's what they call it in academia, faces. And I know you did your dissertation on this particular industry, correct? So,
yes, I did it on live streaming, or live content creation. Yeah.
And the Ply Rock Nation was in the middle of that dissertation.
They were.
Yeah. And what were some of the key observations well, first of all, let me back up for a second. Just so people who are new here who do know you but don't necessarily know, you did just finish your PhD?
That is correct. Yes, this August, I had my dissertation published officially at the University Library, and I am now I have a doctorate. I am Dr. Gordon David Littleford. So yes, and my dissertation was on the basically the cultures that are being built within the live streaming communities. It focused mostly on game streamers, but it reaches to anybody who does that type of online live content. All the policies and the principles and the theories all apply to any of those. So yeah, it's Yeah, it's very interesting seeing how, because at first, this is really interesting. We started off thinking that we were going to kind of look at one of the theories we use is called parasocial relationships, and it's where people who are watching a figure online, or not necessarily online, but like a well-known public figure, begin to feel an emotional attachment to that person, right? And usually with parasocial, it's a one-way street, right? It's like if people really love Johnny Depp, right, and they watch all his movies, and they watch when he's on podcasts, and they feel connection to him, but it's not two-way, right? Johnny Depp has no idea who they are, but they'll walk down the street, and if they see Johnny, they're like, Johnny! And Johnny's like, oh no, someone's trying to rob me or something, right? Like, he will have a different reaction because it's not one-sided. What we kind of started realizing is within... That's kind of one of the things that made live streaming different, was because they have that active communication back and forth, and it's real time, it's live. It allowed that to, like, those boundaries can sometimes be there, but they're also not. You know, like, they start to get crossed, and real relationships start to get built, and you know, there's always going to be a bit of a barrier there if it's not, you know, face to face. That's another thing I talked about. It's a theory called social presence theory, and it's like, how much do you feel like you're actively with somebody, and how much do you feel like you're in their presence? That's where the social presence comes from. And so it can go from, you know, writing a letter in the 1820s, dearest Beauregard, right? Like, that has a very large, you know, it's a month away, and you don't feel like you're right there with them. Whereas live streaming has kind of, that's why it's taking over from regular entertainment. Like, you're seeing like Hollywood type entertainment starting to fall back a little bit, and live streaming is still growing, because what it's done is it's allowed to have the on public figures have that real-time communication, and it lessens that, and also within the community there's that real-time communication where they're like, it's even more so than, like, say, a YouTube video, right? Like, YouTube, you hit a comment and someone will eventually comment back, but you get that real time, so it makes it feel more and more closer to you actually being there. So you get that, so real relationships can start to form because you're breaking down that barrier that makes it feel like, yeah, I know them, but do I really know them? You know, it starts to make it feel more and more personal.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, like you said, they do communicate. The pioneers, I can just use us as an example, because that's obviously what I know the best, but they communicate with each other. They take care of each other. I've formed friendships with a lot of them. I've met them in person, traveled around the country to meet them, including you. We worked together on Facebook Gaming, and Foxy, and shout out some others. So it just, Cornog, met him in person. So a bunch of great pioneers. So it does, and people who are not in the space or not involved in the space in any ways don't understand the space. They really don't understand the emotional and the bond that happens between audience entertainer in this particular arena. They just, it's almost like the wrestler in the ring who controls the crowd. They dance, they move, they tell a story in the ring to elicit, as a better word, the response of the crowd, to take the emotional ride with them. And every streamer or content creator does it differently. I happen to do it with my middle fingers and foul language, but this particular show won't be so hard rated. But there's an emotional response and of laughter, of that's my key goal, is to make everybody have a good time. So I hear what you're saying, and it's crazy because if you're not in there and you don't see it, even people who are open-minded to it, and I've talked to people throughout the years about it. Oh, that sounds cool. Well, yeah, all right. And then they watch it, or somehow just dabble in it a little. Oh, I see what you're saying now. I didn't understand it until I was there. Yeah. Until I saw.
That actually happened with my dissertation. Like, I was, you're bringing it up, and I have two very distinct examples of what you're talking about. So my dissertation chair had the same mentality going into it. It's like, oh, this is just where people watch other people play video games. But as I showed him, like, look at how these communities are experiencing with each other, we actually named one of the sections of my dissertation, it's about relationships, stupid, or something. I can't remember how we worded it, but it was about like No, real relationships are, and the reason people watch a certain streamer isn't just because they're good at the video game that they like, or it isn't just because it has a lot to do with they like that personality and they like the community and they have the relate. And he had to see it himself in the research and had to see the lot because what I do is I copy it and then I dictate it via words and pictures, and he had to see it to understand it. And then I had a teacher while I'm looking for work, I'm also getting a second doctorate for the business department. But I had a teacher who was part of that, was over a class. And I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm trying to look how I'm going to use live streaming. I'm looking at the business side of things, blah, blah, blah. And she could not wrap her head. She's like, I was like, yeah, I'm going to use it with, one of the suggestions we had was how churches could use it, right? Like use this concept of interactivity and stuff. She's like, I just don't know how, from what I know, it's just people watching video games. And I don't know any churches that care about that. And I was like, really? You couldn't think of how community building through online and making emotional and connective community connections through online streams could help some of these churches who, by the way, most now stream their services in some form of their live stream. So it's like you don't understand how they could use some of these principles to develop a better connectivity with people online and maybe make it more comfortable for people to say, that's one thing people don't like when they go to a new church, right? Is you go in and they kind of feel that social awkwardness of everybody oh, hey, how's it going? Where do you live? How do you know? You're like, hey, I just want to see what you guys got first.
Yeah, like a fucking
I'm not giving you my life story.
Like a car dealership. As soon as you walk in there. Yeah.
And so giving them a chance to ease their way into your community through the stream and having, some safeguards with moderators and that kind of stuff that can answer questions and make it more interactive that way is a great way. But she couldn't, it's just like you were saying, she wasn't in the space and she couldn't wrap her mind around. So I just, I had to grit my teeth and just deal with it and give her what she wanted and then move on, But so yeah, you're 100% right that I think it's very experiential. The live streaming environment. It's like if once you feel it and once you experience it, you get it.
Yeah, and it's also once they're there, it's almost their second, third home. Like once they're there and they're comfortable in the community that they're in and they're established in the community that they're in, then they stay and they flourish there. And people they legitimately get to know each other.
Yeah.
I can generally tell. I could honestly, if you turned off the screen names on Twitch of how people were talking, I would probably be right 90% of the time on who was saying what in the chat.
Right.
How they were saying it, what emoji they're dropping, what joke they're trying to tell, what blurb they play, whatever it is, however they interact with the Plyrock Nation show. I would be like, okay, that's such and such, that's such and such. And I don't think it'd be 100%. But I'm telling you, I'd be close. I'd probably be 85, 90%. I know, because I know them.
Yeah.
I know what time they come in.
How you stream, too, right? That's who you are. You like to learn people and find the thing about them and, know them. Because, there's some streamers who, they're just like, hey, thanks, Bobby, for the 5 subs. And then, boom, they're already out of their head, right? And also numerically, right? Tim has 30,000 people watches. He's not going to know each one of them. It's just not physically possible. But it is your brand, and that's kind of what makes your channel special, is that you get to know the people and you develop that.
Yeah, they all have their own catchphrases. They, once I zone in on them. Once I zone in on them and then I know some certain things about them, then that will help tell my story with them. And vice versa. They can tell their story with me. And so that's the back and forth with them that that's how I feel them, know, and how I feel them is how I develop where we're going to take it. And by the way, back to the video game thing real quick. When the fuck do I play video games anymore? Like so you can tell everybody who this is about live streaming. The biggest joke running on our channel now is Ply never plays video games. How come you never? And I say I'm a professional gamer. And like 90% of the stream now is chat versus like it's a whole just organic stand-up comedy routine at this point.
Right.
Where we feed off of each other. The more chaotic they are, the harder I bring it. And next thing you know, it's an hour and a half of clippable, like dirty jokes and laughs for Instagram and TikTok and all that. So, you know, kind of like Matt Rife, he's more of a reactive comedian, right? So he'll his stand-up's okay, but boy, when he goes crowd work,
people who are crowd work specialists,
yeah. So that's what I consider myself when I'm doing it is, yeah, I can hold it for a little while if I got to just do my own thing. But boy, once you start throwing me a little bit of gasoline, and I can zone in on them, then we're off to the races. So, you know what I mean? So I get Matt Rife and his style. I appreciate his talent. So talented. And so, yeah. And then like, you know, with me and you know, as we mold this into the next, the sexier version of Two Bears, One Cave, as we take this.
The younger, hotter version.
Yeah. As we take this to the next level, I mean, I'm excited. We got a lot of great streamer friends who are going to join us on this show. We got a couple lined up already. I know some TikTok creators who have made it big in the YouTube and TikTok space who are going to be on this show. And this is not going to just be just confined to content creation or to video games. Like it's legitimately whatever. If Preach finds a special guest that he finds interesting, and this guy is studying, you know, the African back mole in Ghana, their mating habits, you know, we're gonna have him on. You know what I mean? So like, this is gonna be a broad spectrum style podcast that we're working on here, and we're so excited to bring it to you. Where like, you know, like Joe Rogan, or like. You know, got to give them props. Logan and Jake Paul, what they do. They have guests on of all different creeds, all different professions. We're going to kind of do that here too. So if you're interested in learning the new stuff, just like we are, if you're interested in expressing your opinion, like we're going to do, we're not going to hold it back. That's why this show is going to be live on Rumble soon. Not just pre-taped on Spotify and Apple and things like that, but we're going to be live on Rumble. Which is the free speech platform. We've decided, as Preach and I had high-level meetings, we decided, right?
Oh, yeah.
We decided that is the best home for the live show, because that is the First Amendment free speech platform that we want to be comfortable saying what we believe. We don't expect all of you to agree with us. We don't want you all to agree with us, first of all. We want the debate. We want the jokes to fly. We want everybody. If somebody's not a little bit offended, including me and Preach, when we do this podcast, we're not doing it right. Okay? Because we want to bring the heat. And we want you guys to bring the heat too. Obviously, in a respectful, little bit less of a go fuck yourself way than live at 8 o'clock on Twitch. Let's keep it down a little bit. But you know what I'm saying. So, and that's why we chose Rumble. We thought that would be the best place to do the live show. It will also be then uploaded to YouTube until they ban us. So congratulations, guys. We'll have that channel ready to go soon. We're going to have a presence on X Twitter. We're going to be working on that together. We're obviously, if TikTok survives January 19th, I'll be there. We'll be on Instagram Reels, which is bullshit, by the way, Preach. I'm going, now that TikTok's on like its death's nail, like, got a video going viral as we speak, like just gaining like hundreds of followers today. And I'm like, really? This is what we're doing right at the end? But actually what I've heard, this is actually probably a good thing to talk about, because people are probably interested in what's going on with the TikTok ban, because 170 million Americans do have this on their phones.
Yeah.
What I've heard from other creators and from, you know, videos, but other creators behind the scenes, the app is not going to disappear. It is still going to be functioning and on your phone. on January 19th, Google and Apple and wherever they put it,
they won't sell it anymore.
They have to take it off. TikTok is not allowed to have it on the App Store, make it security ready. When you update the apps, things like that. It's still going to be on your phone for now. Over time, if TikTok does not resolve this with the incoming amazing administration, not the shitty leaving one, then hey, we said we were gonna let it fly.
Yeah, no, I'm teasing. I love it. Go for it.
Listen, I don't give a fuck. So, but the whole point is, jokes aside, non-jokes aside, believe what you want to believe. Mm-hmm. If they don't resolve it, eventually the app will time itself out, where it will, Android will evolve, Apple iOS or OS, I forgot what they call it on the phone, but that will evolve, and it won't work anymore.
Yeah.
So that could be 6 months, a year, whatever, down the road. So there is time for people, for them to resolve this, for TikTok to either give up and sell it, or, to Kevin Leary, the big billionaire from Shark Tank, who's trying to put together a team. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah, no, I did. I saw where they were trying. Somebody from the U.S. was trying to. Yes, the bald guy from Shark Tank. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So either that's going to happen, or TikTok is going to somehow convince and put together security measures to protect, and Congress is going to have to pass something else to try to. But there is time. So if the Supreme Court comes back on Monday, we're recording this podcast, by the way, guys, on Sunday. I don't know, was it the 12th?
12th, yeah.
Yeah, Sunday, the 12th of January. Supreme Court is supposed to issue some type of injunctive answer on Monday, because TikTok and the government argued on, I think it was Thursday. So they were live doing it there for 3 hours. It's hard to read the justices, but I watched some of it. It looks like they were, you couldn't tell one way or the other. Sometimes you can tell when they're like, they get, you can tell with the questions they ask. Like,
yeah, which way they're leaning. Yeah.
They were leaning pretty hard in the government's favor in the beginning of what I saw in the beginning of the hearing, the 2.5 hours. By the end of the hearing, they were kind of like, oh, I understand it now. It was a First Amendment algorithm issue that they were confused about, as opposed, I don't want to get into the whole thing, but it seemed they were more open-minded to putting a stay on it. Whether or not they have grounds to put a stay on it, because Congress did pass the bill. President Shits-his-pants did sign the bill. So I don't know how that's going to work. But, by the way, if we're going to let it fly, let's let it fly. These scumbags in Congress, all of them, okay, this isn't just a one side or the other. They use TikTok all the time to promote their bullshit to us, right? Yeah, they used all the congressmen, including that jerk from North Carolina. I forgot his name, Jackson, I think. He was a huge TikToker, and he voted to ban it, right? They don't want us having apps like TikTok because they don't want us to see how they handle fires in LA without their filter. They don't want us to see what they did in Hawaii or didn't do in Hawaii when it burned down a few years ago. They don't want us to argue about COVID shots or other things going on. And it makes it harder for them to control information flying like that when they don't have control of an app like TikTok. Now, regardless of who does have control of that app, and TikTok is not some glorious, to me, good guys. So I'm not defending their moral position. But the American government doesn't have control over that. So if ByteDance, Chinese government, whoever wants to push a narrative, the U.S. government can't push that narrative, whatever that narrative is. Mm-hmm. So they're like, we don't like this. While they do have control of, unless you believe Zuck, I guess we can get into that next, but unless they do have control of Facebook. They do have control of Instagram and YouTube and these, some of these, not Rumble, but some of these other ones that we know of, not Rumble. And so they're able to control their narrative and their bullshit with CBS News, whatever they're using, plus these social media sites, plus Hollywood, those freaks. They're allowed to do that. But here comes TikTok, right? And TikTok, you know, I know the Chinese government is definitely not the hero in any fucking story. Don't get me wrong. There's one person you know hates commies more than anybody. It's Ply. All right? Listen, you cut my fingers right now. I bleed red, white, and blue out of all three, baby. Listen. All right? I was born in the 80s. I'm still in the 80s. Ask Preach. He'll tell you right now, motherfucker, get out of the 80s. We're done with it. Right? So.
Yeah. That's always my.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Listen, I flex and put body butter on sometimes just to feel good about myself, even on my belly. But they just can't control it. And there's like millions of small businesses on TikTok in America. So let's just look at the good side. There's like, I think 6+ million small business. And then how many content creators make a living on TikTok? 170 million people are on TikTok in the United States. There has to be a solution to this. We're supposed to be the good guys. We're supposed to defend free speech around the world. We're supposed to, especially at home. You know what I mean? We're the last beacon. We're it. So if everybody really wants to live through Fallout on Amazon, great show, by the way. If they want to live through that, then just get ready to get rid of this country because this is it. So part of that process to me is figuring out a real solution to whatever this problem is with TikTok. And maybe while I'm, wearing my Chinese hoodie and, wearing my Chinese sneakers, you know what I mean? So that's the way I see it. Oh, you're disappearing on me. Oh, you're back. So
yeah, no, I was having some technical issue. I fixed it.
I don't know what your take is on that, but to me, the most of the economy is like to pretend like somehow they're virtuous, like the Chinese are spying on us. Bro, really? Like you let them make our microchips, they're making motherboards, they're making cell phones, like all our clothes. I mean, I'd rather have those clothes made in the U.S., don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying, they're doing all these things.
It's
so
selective.
Hypocritical. Oh, so
yeah,
selective.
It's selective because they're like.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's It's called selective outrage.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, how could it? And then it's like, most of the computer chips on the motherboards of the stuff you use in your, government machines are made. Well, there is Taiwan, which is one of the main, like they do Snapdragon, TSM, all that.
Yeah.
And they are not China, but there is a lot that gets manufactured through China. A lot of, like you said, iPhones, Nike, your smartwatches, your TVs, like a lot of that stuff goes
your
through...
dog food. Remember years ago? Remember years ago when they had that big problem with the poison dog food? Like maybe it was 10 years ago, and they released this list of don't eat these 40 brands of dog food. They're killing dogs all over the world. Yep. And everybody's like, I don't want to say the names because I don't remember what was on the list, but they were big names, right?
Yeah.
And they were all made in one factory. All the TVs in the world are made in 3 factories.
Yep.
There's 3 factories. There's like Samsung,
South Korea.
Yeah, but TCL, Vizio, whatever, Sony, all of them. There's 3 factories. I think 2 of the 3 are in China. I mean, leave a comment if I'm wrong, please, because that helps us. But
yeah, I was gonna say I didn't do my current research on the TV manufacturing locations.
They're all made in these one spot. Like, by the way, just to be clear with everybody at home, we call it China here. I mean, and we call it Taiwan here. Taiwan's a real country, just so everybody knows. I know everybody.
I know.
Listen,
you can't. Yeah.
Listen, a lot of John Cena fans, they don't know.
I was about to be like, It's like, we have to apologize in like the worst Chinese possible.
That poor guy. Boy, was he strung. He was strung up for one of the worst movies, too. He wasn't even strung up for a good movie by Universal. Yeah. Fast and Furious 9. Like that guy. But I'm just saying, it's Taiwan. So let's just be clear where we stand there. So, but they just don't be hypocritical about it. You know what I mean? Like, don't be they're trying to take away people's ability to talk to each other. So many people talk to each other on TikTok. But to be fair, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, they tried to emulate what TikTok does.
Yeah.
And they're somewhat, it's not as good.
I mean, that's part of what sabotaged the live game streaming over on YouTube. Because you remember, like, a lot of creators went over to YouTube. Big streamers went over to YouTube with promises that, oh, we're going to do this for the streaming. And then what happened was YouTube shifted their focus they decided to not put that money and effort into streaming and instead put it into YouTube Shorts, because YouTube Shorts, which emulates TikTok, were doing better and they could make money quicker and easier. I mean, in the end, it all comes down to how you make money for these corporations. It's not going to be about, they don't care what's the most entertaining. They're just like, what takes the least amount of resources to put out a product and then get the most resources back from that product. And so
as any company.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not criticizing. Yeah. That's also, that's companies exist to make money. Like, anybody who's like, no, they exist to make me happy. It's like, no, they don't. Video game company don't exist to make you happy. No entertainment property they just don't. It's especially not when you get large enough that there's investors. Investors aren't going to pay they're not going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for a video game to be made just because they want you to have entertainment. They're doing it because they think that's going to have a return on investment and they're going to make some money off of it. That's called risk. They take the risk so that they then get the reward later. And so, yeah, it is an interesting concept that, like, I don't understand. That may be part of it as well. I guess that's where I was leading with this, is there are some companies that have a little more American-based, like, they didn't take off as well as they weren't taking as big a chunk out of TikTok as they wanted. And I do wonder if there's some of that's like, if we eliminate TikTok, all of a sudden all those people are going to have to use our version of TikTok.
Yeah.
And so it's, it's kind of moving the money from one organization to another.
Yeah, crony capitalism. That's what it is. Somebody from, one of the other social media companies, or a bunch of them, fine, we'll censor the people you want us to censor. We will lock down the messages you want us to lock down. But you need to help us with our biggest competitor, because we can't beat our biggest competitor, honestly, one-on-one.
Yeah.
That has happened in every country, in every civilization since the dawn of man. Like, it's just obviously in the United States, because we're, capitalism. Crony capitalism, by the way, is not capitalism.
Yeah.
It's a fake, distorted version of just crooked people doing crooked shit. Like, it's not.
Yeah, it's actually much closer to socialism because the government starts to control.
Yeah. And
the means of production. Like,
winners and losers.
It's the idea of capitalism is that the government doesn't hardly, do much of anything with that, and it lets quality and pricing and that dictate winners. Once you start getting to a high level of control, all of a sudden it's the same thing. The government is controlling who succeeds and who doesn't succeed.
Yeah, and I don't know either. Like, I don't know if the timing is sus, and I haven't listened to his interview with Joe yet. I'm very curious to listen to Zuckerberg's interview with Joe Rogan.
I was going to ask about him.
And Joe went after him a few times on a few things. He didn't hold back on him, is what I heard. I heard it's a great interview. But Zuck, all of a sudden, and people who have known me for the past 7 years, if I've been in this space, know my history with Facebook gaming. So there's no hidden pretext to how many middle fingers I gave them years ago, where they almost ruined my entire career and my dreams based upon their censorship and their bullshit. So to me, I got a big like interest in this, because they took away something I worked for 3 years, risked it all, family, friends, everything for this dream. And glad I did, but I'm just, paid off. But I'm just saying, these guys, and then for Zuck to do this 180, for those of you who don't know, just to bring up the speed real quick, Zuck made a video last week announcing that he was firing all the fact checkers on Facebook. He was getting rid of the fact checkers and the censorship. He said Facebook was going back to its original roots of free speech. and they were going to go to a community notes-based system like X, Twitter. Worst rebrand. I love Elon, but you got to work on that rebranding, bro. So
I love everything he did with it except for the brand. Everybody still says
Twitter,
tweets, and Twitter. Yeah, because it's just like X doesn't work.
He could have called it Twitter 2.0 or something, but anyway. I mean, even Xbox does a better job at branding than he did with that. So, Zuck comes out and he says, "That's it. We're going back." And I believe he wasn't as pro censorship as he accidentally caged himself to be with the people he hired and getting in bed with the feds and everything else. So I think he got caught in it like Jack Dorsey did with Twitter. So Dorsey has free speech. Dorsey gets sucked into the DEI/Fed entanglement of crap over time, and Twitter becomes a cesspool of just one side censoring and holding down the other. That's what happened with the original Twitter, right? So back when I used to do journalism work, I got banned on Twitter for writing articles that they didn't like, and then they'd apologize 2 or 3 weeks later saying it was an accident. We didn't mean to ban your article. We've released it now and nobody cares. So they'd always play that game.
Yeah.
So that's kind of...
By the way, that's a big thing. People don't understand.
Yeah.
The most engagement you get, like your immediate, is like within those first couple of days.
Yeah.
When you release something. So if they take that away, they take away the reach and the, like that. It's not, that wasn't by accident. It was a very intentional like, oopsie doopsie, but we've destroyed anybody ever seeing what you put out there. That is a... It's like, it doesn't help that they put it back out 3 weeks later. It's like, oh, it's okay. People eventually get it. That's not how it works. Even with algorithms.
Yeah, they just suppress it.
Yeah, it's a suppression.
The suppression works better than outright banning, because then they can say, oh, we didn't ban you. We just didn't show it to anybody. But how can you prove that? So we were able to see the inner workings of X when Elon bought it. He showed us, he showed us all the inner workings of it and said, look at this garbage. And for whatever you think about Elon, it's okay to not like Elon or like Elon. Elon is working very hard to give us the ability to not like him and like him at the same, like people to argue about him freely.
Yep.
So, which is why I'm here to defend speech I don't like. I am here to make a stand for speech up to, like, I think there should be very broad, it should be like a hockey rink, but a big one. I think there has to be some general societal rules on speech. Like, I shouldn't be able to directly threaten you or your family. I shouldn't, like, that's understandable. I also shouldn't be able to, and I mean I as in anybody, but I shouldn't be able to say anything that's actually illegal. Like, I sell X drug, or, you know, anything with people under the age of 18 is disgusting. Yeah. So I get that stuff. That's the parameter.
Legality. But I agree.
But if you're dumb enough to defend Karl Marx, you shouldn't be censored for defending Karl Marx, because Burke is going to come in and slap you every time. Okay? So I get it. That's fine. So those things, everything should fly. Whether you like Fauci, you don't like Fauci. Whether you like Pfizer or you don't like Pfizer. Let it go. Let it go. Let people work these things out. That's how you keep a free society. That's how you keep, rebellions from happening, from violence from happening. That's how you get problems solved. That's how you get people to coexist when they are free to speak, when they feel that they are free to speak. Once they feel bottled up, the only thing that kept another revolution from happening is the middle class in this country. They've studied it 1,000,000 times over how many civilizations. When there's a high class and a lower class, and there's nothing in the middle, there is always eventually an uprising, and, let them eat cake, which I don't think she really said in the French Revolution, but whatever, we'll stick with it for now.
So, yeah.
That shit happens. The middle class is what stops it, because people have an ability to rise, and then they have enough that they want to preserve. If you own a $300,000 house with 2 kids and a wife or a husband, whatever you're doing, and a car and a lawnmower, and your kids are going to college, you're less apt to pick up your musket.
it makes you more willing to work things out rather than just try to force your way on somebody else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, because you have something to lose. Yeah, no, I agree.
And when
I do wonder how much of that, like, because our society has gotten much more polarized and much like because this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with even back with social presence and that it's like people feel much more free to make violent claims to they get I think and they also get more isolated so they can build these boogeymen in their mind of what the other side is. Like they can it's easier for them to remove the humanity from people who disagree with them from those people so they can then everybody's a Nazi, right? Like everybody who disagrees with me is a Nazi type deal, and therefore if everybody's a Nazi, well, it's obviously good for me to use violence or to misuse the judicial system, and because they're Nazis so they don't deserve a real trial. If you can convince yourself that everyone on the other side is genuinely evil instead of having to deal with the reality that no, they're humans who happen to disagree with you or they see a different path to success. So I do like that would be another. We can't do it this podcast, but that would be an interesting topic to look at. Is how does online communication? How has it impacted the way we deal with disappointment, deal with disagreement, deal with social issues? Rather than because it does allow you to kind of get trapped in your own space, and even with platforms like X or Facebook, you can block people that you don't agree with, right? And so then you become more and more trapped inside of an echo chamber, right? So it just makes it more likely to be, and it's not normal. And that's the other thing. I think we've always had crazy people in society, but I think the way it is now, it enhances the impact of being isolated. It lets them get trapped more inside their head, and it doesn't cause reality to kind of keep being forced back upon them. And we've also become more self-centered in general. We're just like everybody's very like, no, what matters to me is the most important. It's like we don't teach people to be selfless and be a little more, caring about other people. And so it's kind of had this like multiple factors keep building this fire that has allowed people. I think that's why you were seeing more, a lot of, we had what, 2 active attempts on a presidential, assassination attempts.
That we
and a
know
third
of.
one that got spoiled.
Yeah.
It's like, that's crazy. And it should have been, we should recognize that, like, that's like crazy. And it didn't even get that much, is the weird things, it didn't even get that much like publicity, like after the first, it was like, we should be talking about how we're kind of unhinged and we need to figure out a way to deal with the impact that we don't need to get rid of it, but we need to learn how to like deal with and I don't know, offset some of the sociological factors that online social media and the way we can kind of control our own interactivity with each other, what that has caused. We need to figure out a way to fix that a little bit. And I do think one of those things, bringing it back to your main point, is just allowing free speech. Let what is public be a full marketplace of ideas, and let those with the best ideas win out. And that's the way you kind of offset that.
Well, it's how you let the steam out of the valve.
Yeah.
That's how you let the pressure off, too. And nobody feels bottled up. The other thing, to your other point real quick, was when you were talking about people getting contained in their own little reinforced world, the algorithms will put you
Yeah, it's true too.
in a place where you think the rest of the country thinks the way you do, because it's showing you the 5% or whatever it could be, 5%, 10%, is showing the people that you think. So and then you look around and go, oh my gosh, we're being taken over by a few people that think a different way when everybody thinks like us.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, bro. Like, that's not how it works. You're just your Twitter or your Facebook or your whatever, Instagram or TikTok. is showing you things that it thinks you're interested in and people you agree with. So it's just reinforcing whatever you're believing. You know, here's a good example, like the red pill guys. You know, the guys who, like on TikTok, you can get stuck in the guys who say, you know, who don't get married. You know, those guys are like, and they have some good points. They're not full of shit. But they're a little too extreme.
Yeah.
Like, we have to fix marriage. We don't have to get rid of it. It's this stabilizing force of society, the family, right?
The family is. Yeah,
but then on the other side, you got the Rosie O'Donnells on the other side, who say, "Oh, we're superior to men, and we don't need a man." I mean, what did Gloria Steinem say? "I need a man like a fish needs a bicycle." Yeah? Well, the last time I was at Target, motherfucker, 3 different women asked me to go to the top of the fucking aisle and get something off the top shelf for them 3 different times I've been in stores. So I don't know, bring a step stool. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Change your fucking tire, right? So there's truth to both sides.
Yeah.
Like, people need to respect each other, man. We complete each other, and people forget that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around people who are yes me to death. I don't want to be around people who have the exact same perspective as me. Number
that's
one,
why we're friends, right?
Yeah. Number one, that's boring.
Yeah.
That's intellectually boring. And number,
I mean, I don't agree. Oh, I don't agree. No, I'm just kidding.
Number 2, I'll never know when I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I have changed my mind on a lot of things since I was young. All right. I really have. I could just give a quick example. The Patriot Act. When 9/11 happened and I was a teenager, I was all for the Patriot Act. And I was like, oh, I got nothing to hide. They can warrantlessly look at my computer. They can look at my cell phone. I was all in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then after I learned from other people, had some self-reflection, I was like, shit, I was wrong. We never should have opened Pandora's box to the Patriot Act, because now they're going to abuse it. And of course, obviously, we know the whole story with Russiagate and everything else. And they've done it to millions of Americans. It's not just this guy or that person. So what I'm saying is, I was wrong on that. But I would not know that if I was in this little algorithm with the 4 Johnny-come-latelys who thought their BB guns were getting ready to take over fucking land and start a new country. And I had to go out and get the perspective of people I didn't agree with. And that's not just politics, man. Business, family, sports, whatever you're into. If you are in an echo chamber, in that particular field, religion, philosophy, whatever you're interested in, and you get stuck in an echo chamber and you start to believe your own bullshit, then you're not really interested in that subject. You're interested in your own bullshit, because you can't possibly know everything there is to know from a different perspective on that particular thing. It's like, people who worship science. Dude, how many times over, if you really look, they thought the earth was flat. They believed like less than 100 years ago that eugenics was a real thing. You know what I mean? Like, I could give how many examples of when science was. They still don't. Now they argue if Pluto's a planet. Did the Big Bang really happen? How do you lose weight? What are you supposed to eat? The food pyramid changed how many times? They just admitted to us, a month ago, Sudafed's full of shit. That cold medicines hardly work. The FDA's been pushing cold medicines for how long? And they're like, oh, well, actually, they don't really work that well. So, we're just going to have, or whatever it was. I have to post the article. But, the fuck? Like, dude, you can't get stuck in an echo chamber. There's so many beautiful people on planet Earth. There's so many beautiful people with so many beautiful perspectives. And you got to hear them. You got to listen before you speak. And when you do, then you learn things. You see things that you didn't think were possible before. That makes for a more fulfilling life. I promise you, too. Never mind the truth or aliens and all this shit. It actually just makes you feel more fulfilled and more connected.
and it's like we do need to learn as a society how to. I mean, it's a cliche say, well, we'll just agree to disagree, but there's a point where it's like you do have to, because sometimes you'll hear somebody give their position, and you still are like, no. After I process what what I'm hearing you say, I still think my facts or my information is logically, but you have to be honest about it. Like, I think self-honesty is something that just, it is a very lost art. Like, being genuinely willing to be like, okay, am I doing this because this makes me feel comfortable right now? You know, like, or am I doing this because my sense of worth is tied into never being wrong? You know, it's like, we don't question ourselves enough to be honest. And then you can be like, because if you genuinely question it, and then you go, nope, I still think, you know, after really genuinely looking into it, I still believe that the facts, not my emotions, not what I wish were true, not but the facts support what I already agree with. But then you're even stronger, right? Because then you've gone out and you found more information, and you are even better at understanding why you believe what you believe, and it's not a shallow, emotional, off the cuff, well, it just feels right this way. You know, I mean, I think it's one of the things I get the most frustrated with when I do, you know, have discourse with people sometimes, is their thinking on a topic is only 1 or 2 levels deep. And if you get past that, they don't want to go further because that's all they've ever put into it, because then you'd have to question it. You're right. Like, you have to put the time and energy into questioning yourself and be like, oh, I really need to think more than just, like, you know, that one article I spent 5 minutes reading the headline of and developed my entire belief system off of it. That's like,
Jimmy Kimmel told a joke, and so now I believe what he was joking about. Yeah. No, exactly. And that's why I said it doesn't necessarily always have to just be zoned in on like something super important or like the world's gonna end or whatever. Like, it's an art form. It's an art form to practice over the entirety of the beautiful mosaic that is your life.
Yep.
And so once you, and I, by the way, self-reflection, I was not good at this for a very long time. So you know what I mean? Like, I had to go through a lot of personal shit to get to this point, emotionally and everything else, you know, business, emotion, ups and downs, family shit, everything, to force myself to not be stubborn, to not be this, to not be that. So, and I'm still learning. I'm not even perfect at it, because I do revert back sometimes to, you know, the old double-barreled middle finger when I don't want to hear it or whatever. But it's a lot more rare and rare and rare. So, like, you know,
this isn't. I was going to bring up something. This isn't necessarily. I want to be sure. I'm not going to be referencing you. I was thinking in general. I like, think about relationship advice, right? Like, when people go to their friend group, right? And they all. That's why. I mean, I think it's almost why I almost don't think it's healthy to take too much. Like, you have to really trust your friend group to be honest with you. That's the other thing. If you have a yes man friend group, they're just, no matter what you say, they 100% go, yeah, no, you're right. You're not going to get good advice. If you have trustworthy friends, then absolutely, you know, every now and then. But there's some things that don't need to be shared with everybody. But also, you're like, too often people they will always be like, oh no, you're definitely right, when you aren't. You know, like, it's like, you just see that a lot. And I feel like, from what I've been able to experience, I mean, we're both kind of we're in our early 40s, right? Still in the first half of the 40s. And so we've had a lot of friends who have been in relationships, and we've had a lot of people we've talked, and it's like, you see a lot from one side. And I've been able to actually be kind of blessed to see some stuff from both sides. And it is very interesting sometimes when you see that they both perceived what was going on in a just almost entirely different way. Like, what they thought was actually happening was 2 different stories. Again, I'm not talking about you, I'm literally 0% about it. So, but I'm just saying, in general, I was thinking about how many relationships, because they were in an echo chamber and because they just wanted people to say, no, you're right. And then a relationship that could have been good if they would have both came to the table saying, listen, let's try to work this out. Let's try to figure out what I can change, what you can change, what needs to be adjusted. You know, instead they just came to the table. You need to do what I think is the way I perceive things, the way I've always felt things need to be, or else this isn't going to work. And think about how many relationships have died and been, how many people then become bitter and ingrained in how, they start to dislike. I mean, I think that's where a lot of the, we're kind of seeing a war of the sexes a little bit, like you were
that's
saying.
That's what I was referencing. And then you get the feminists.
You see them get bitter, and they, that's where, and it's bad advice because it's based off of incorrect information.
Well, I would actually just step back a second, not even just about relationships, just about human perspective in general. There's a reason that when cops go to an accident scene, they don't ask one person what happened. Yeah. Right? So they ask every witness what happened. And then every witness will honestly give them a different take on what happened, even though they all watched the same exact car accident. So one guy will say that guy was doing 60 and hit that other guy head on. Another guy will say, well, I saw the other guy blow a red light. This guy was going actually slower and someone swore. Like, they actually will all see the same exact thing. And will have some variation on what happened. And so, yeah, everybody's a villain in someone's story, right? I personally want to be a villain in 5 million people's fucking stories, so make sure you guys are following this podcast and following the Twitch thing. But people just don't, from life experience, from psychology, from how you were raised to your genetics, there's so many factors, right? And so you just see things differently. I'm the only person on the planet who likes Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. All right? I have a perspective where I enjoy the game. Yeah, crucify me. I get it. Right? The writing sucks.
There's one person in Pakistan that likes it as well.
Yeah, I play with him. We team up.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
He's always. I told him he's got to use someone other than King Shark. I'm sick of that shit. But anyway, so I'm the only one left who plays it. I get it. I know the writing sucks. I know Sweet Baby can suck a fat one over there in Canada with their terrible writing. I get it. I like the game. My perspective is I enjoy it. It brings me joy. It brings me calm and peacefulness blowing shit up. Okay, I like to watch things blow up, and I like to watch Harley do it. All right? I don't care what Harley's saying about me. I just want to watch Harley do it. All right? That's it. All right? So anyway, but that's what I'm saying. Like, just the perspectives in general. Like, people are going to have a different perspective as we close up this podcast. They're going to have a different perspective here on what we talked about today. Some people are going to agree with us, disagree with us. I mean, we kind of kept it lighthearted today, but we're going to have...
Not too heavy.
No, we're going to swing, baby. I told you we're going to swing. Listen, we love all you guys, whether you agree with us or not. We love you guys for joining us. We're hanging out with us. We're hanging out with us on Twitch. We're hanging out with us here, Rumble, wherever it is. Share it with your family, your friends. If you learned something here, if we pissed you off today, if we made you laugh and happy today, we got guests coming. We got a whole bunch of things coming here. And we're just going to be ourselves, dude. So... that line would land different on a Play Rock stream, huh? Yeah, well, it's gonna in about 3 hours. So, always Eastern Standard Time. 187 countries. I don't know if you guys knew that, but and by the way, big shout out to Daddy Elon for saving the Play Rock Nation show with Starlink, because Cox Communications, the cable company, couldn't get a thumb out of anybody's ass, let alone their own, to fix my internet for the past 2 years. So, and then Starlink came in and it's worked beautifully. It might not now that I jinxed it, but it has up to this point. And so they do not sponsor the show, by the way. I just use their product. But yeah, well, hey man,
we got an open spot. Just saying.
We do actually. So, but yeah, I think we're gonna go on a fun ride. We're gonna do this weekly. I think the plan is as our agents meet with each other to negotiate this deal. Oh, yeah. And, we got some high-level meetings coming up. And we're going to definitely present this every week. We're not 100% sure if we're going to start new channels for this podcast or put them on our existing channels. For now, they'll be on our existing channels as we get Rumble up and running. We think we'll get Rumble up and running as I'm looking at my calendar, talking to my assistant here. It looks like we'll be able to get that up and running by next week. We'll see. So, but I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be fun. And I'm glad to be able to be me, like just calm, level 6, level 7 John Ply, as opposed to level 10, 11 Ply here with you. and with all of you who have joined us today, all 7 of you this first time, and then all as it grows. So, and we, next week we got things to talk about, man. We know shit's gonna happen during the week. We didn't even talk about NVIDIA today. We want to talk about the 5000 series card coming out. We're all excited for that. How pissed off are the people with the 4090s? Maybe a little bit, but we can talk about that too. You know?
I got one. I'm still I mean, it was what, 3 years we got?
With
it runs. It's still like,
oh, it's a monster.
Marvel Rivals, I run 4K max settings and I'm hitting like 170 frames. It's still I feel like I got my money's worth out of it for 2 years. Like, a lot of times they were pumping out a new card every year.
Yeah.
And that got expensive. So I feel like I actually got use out of the 4090, and now it's degraded in price. Like, I would be okay having to sell it for $600 and then spend an extra $100 to get a 5070 for the same, or a 5080, spend a couple $100 for a 5080 to get slightly upgraded. Like, I feel like it's, as a 4090, okay, sorry, we're getting out, but I'm okay with it. I feel like it wasn't that bad. I don't feel ripped off.
So
but
Preach.
We can talk about that next time.
So Professor Preach and 2% of the internet are okay with it. The other 98%, we'll see how they feel as they leave the comments down below. That's all right. They can bitch about it. We want them to bitch about it. We want to see what's going on.
We want something to talk about. Yeah.
We want to feel the pulse of our fans, friends, followers, and see what's going on. That's why we're here. We're here to make a difference. We're here to change the motherfucking world. All right, guys, thank you so much. Make sure you share on Apple, Spotify, wherever you do your podcast. Do not play this podcast for your grandmother unless she's got a dirty sense of humor like us. But definitely share it with your uncle. We like your uncle. Your uncle probably sides with us on most topics. So send it to him. Send it to your dad. Hopefully you still know your dad. We like people who don't have dads or do have dads. We do not discriminate against the people who don't have dads or not dads. Or if you have 2 dads, you could have 2 dads. So come on in. We love it. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys live next week. Say goodbye, Preach.
Goodbye, Preach.